All right, everybody, it is Steve with Real Progress in Action. Our guy today is going to be all about Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg has embraced the most horrific of neoliberal stances known to mankind. Is the single greatest offense against the progressive agenda that could possibly be done. With the exception of Nancy Pelosi's Pelosi, Pete Buttigieg is now going out and saying that Democrats need to focus once again on deficit reduction. This is an egregious attack on the poor and the middle class. It is an egregious attack that is akin to bombing Afghanistan, that is akin to the war on drugs, that is akin to deportations, that is akin to climate crisis. It's that level of dangerous. And it is important that you understand this, because this is about to become front and center in all your newspapers. What Pete Buttigieg is really trying to take a crack at not only the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, free college, all that stuff. And he's now trying to shift the focus on fiscal responsibility, conservative logic, disgusting, vile, evil, economically illiterate logic. Now, why does this matter? Well, because if you reduce the deficit, what you've done is you've in essence reduced the money in circulation. You've reduced the spending on the people, and you have once again made it so that the haves continue to have lots and the have-nots continue to beg for crumbs. This is the entire reason why modern monetary theory attacks such major important issues, such as a Green New Deal. We come after it and we say we can do these things. We can do these great things. And here's Pete to try and tell you, no, I'm going to drag you back to the Stone Ages. We're going to talk about deficit reduction. We're going to go ahead and remove all possibilities of any valuable programs coming to be. And this right here is inexcusable. Pete is an enemy of the people beyond words. And this is not hyperbole. I'm going to read to you what he's saying. So Pete Buttigieg called on Democrats to get more serious about lowering the national debt, portraying himself as the biggest fiscal hawk in the presidential field and taking a shot at chief New Hampshire rival Bernie Sanders for being too spendthrift. Now, folks, if you support this guy, you support murder, because austerity is murder, and he supports austerity. He is the worst of them all. This is not hyperbole, I promise you. This is not hyperbole at all. Asked at a town hall here how important the deficit is to him, Buttigieg says it's important and vowed to focus on limiting the debt, even though it's not fashionable in progressive circles. Well, it's not fashionable because progressives understand federal finance. We're not worthless. We have value, and we care about people, unlike Pete, the cheat. And this is definitely marching orders from the Wall Street types. Have you ever received that stupid email, that stupid chain mail that Warren Buffett supports this deficit reduction and raising taxes and balanced budget and all this stuff? I can balance the budget instantly. I can cut every single social spending plan in the world, and we can balance the budget. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So anyway, let's keep going here. I think the time has come for my party to get a lot more comfortable owning the issue, because I see what's happening under this president, a $1 trillion deficit, and his allies in Congress do not care. We have to do something about it, the former South Bend, Indiana mayor said in a packed middle school gym, drawing cheers from the crowd. Folks, idiots still believe it's important to reduce the deficit. Do you realize the United States government is the currency issuer? The debt is debt to itself. Imagine this. Every time the government spends money, the initial originating spend has to put a mark on the one side of the ledger, even though it's creating it out of thin air. You understand? There's your debt. And when China buys debt, what they've done is they've decided all those dollars they've already earned from trade with the United States that is sitting there in a vault somewhere, in a bank account. They're like saying, hey, we want to earn a nominal interest rate. Let's buy a bond. That's not debt. We pay for it with keystrokes, period, folks. Period. Period. The national debt is nothing more than the sum total of every untaxed dollar in existence. Nothing more. Every single dollar in existence is the national debt. That's what it is. Because when the United States government spent that money into existence, it created a mark on the one side of the ledger. You know, double entry accounting? You have to be a neo-maxi-zundweeby not to get this. No offense to you neo-maxi-zundweebies that don't get it. But you got to be one to not get this. A dollar is not some infinite thing handed on from on high from the Lord Savior. We didn't mine it from the ground and dig up a U.S. dollar. No, we keystroked. You know, we took out some keystroke and we said, let's go ahead and keystroke that baby into existence. Ding, 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 ding. And that's where dollars come from. And when we tax, we reduce, we get rid of dollars. We purge dollars from the system. They're deleted. And when Congress spends, it spends. Now, the problem is this. See, because Pete is such an illiterate. Pete, the mayor, is used to managing a mayoral budget for a township or a city. Doesn't understand federal finance at all. It's a sign of a worthless person when you're in the role that he's in to take that stance. How can you possibly plan to run a country and say you care about black and brown people, say you care about the poor, say you care about poverty, but yet you place the goal on reducing the amount of money our federal government creates out of thin air and spends into the economy to help people? Fuck you, Pete. How about that? How about, let me... I mean, this is ridiculous. Okay? So, do you understand this for real? The national debt is nothing more than the sum total of every untaxed dollar in existence, period. To reduce the debt is to eliminate money from the economy. The government creates it freely whenever Congress authorizes spending, and it deletes it freely whenever it authorizes a federal tax. Now, in Pete's little, teeny little bubble of the world, the little South Bend budget, well, they are tax constrained. They have to spend the proceeds of the revenue they get from taxation or bonds they purchase. The federal government creates bonds out of thin air. Shit, you got a treasure trove over there of bonds? We got to find some more bonds to sell. Well, shit on a stick. Well, I'll be damned. Got to get me some bonds. They come out of thin air. Thin air. Pete wants to reduce it. He wants to reduce the deficit. He's a very serious man. Never mind that he looks like Alfred E. Newman and that funky picture for Rage Against the Machine, The Evil Empire. Never mind that Rat Boy doesn't understand economics. He is an enemy of the people. So, you got Trump and the gang spending on tax cuts for the wealthy. So the deficit is on the wrong people. We should be reducing wealth at the top, but not at the expense of the bottom. And a 2% tax increase on the wealthy may feel like a victory, fist in the air. It ain't doing shit for the people on the bottom because those taxes are deleted. If the tax is deleted, then it's certainly not going and recycling around with the poor. So what did you do? You fought a war to make you feel good. And it's noble to reduce inequality by taxing wealth. But when you render the rich irrelevant by spending directly on the people, which is what Bernie Sanders is trying to do, you make the rich, you realize the rich aren't necessary to make society thrive. And Pete's doing his best to make sure that you believe that without those rich people, without his billionaires, Pete's billionaires, we can't do nice things. He's a neoliberal shill through and through. We figured out how to deliver health care to every American without a $20, $30, or $40 trillion price tag. Liar. But you know what, though? I'll give him this much credit. By getting rid of private insurance, if you go with Medicare for all, it's actually a deflationary event. So if Bernie Sanders was listening to his economic advisor on this one, or Warren Mosler, more importantly, in this case, he would know that Medicare for all should be paid for, so to speak, with a tax cut. Oh, but that's so counter to what you're thinking. That's counter to what you're thinking. You're so used to taxes paying for stuff, you can't imagine that a country that creates money freely doesn't need your revenue. It doesn't need your revenue. So why do we tax to begin with? The tax is there to drive the need for the currency. You cannot pay your taxes at the end of the year or any other time in anything other than U.S. dollars. The inability to tax was why the Confederacy went into hyperinflation. Yay. You know, the states' rights cut the taxes, don't want to collect taxes. Well, they found out why taxes are necessary. But they don't pay for a freaking thing. So there's one where Bernie Sanders, I wish he would change his rhetoric. He knows what he's talking about. They're using it as offsets, but it's not the right answer to the question. And Stephanie knows it, and so does Warren Mosler. And so do we now, right? Anyway, Pete's full of shit is the bottom line. It was a thinly veiled dig at Sanders, who told CBS News in January that it was impossible to predict the true cost of his Medicare for All plan because nobody knows what would happen to health care costs over a decade. Sanders has touted independent studies that show his plan to collapse all private insurance into a government-run plan would reduce health spending. This is key. It would reduce economic activity because all that inefficiency stops happening. Guess what inefficiency is? Remember, chaos is opportunity, right? Never let a good crisis go to waste. Chaos equals economic activity. So all that bullshit and inefficiency is a feature, not a bug. It's creating jobs the dumb way. These are the dumb jobs that we shouldn't be creating. The bureaucracy, the red tape, the bullshit. So by reducing insurance down to Medicare for all and having single payer, you radically eliminate huge amounts of spending. It's tremendously more efficient. And so now all of a sudden, it becomes a deflationary situation that should require a tax cut. Buttigieg's remarks are out of step with plenty of progressives who believe Democrats are easily duped by conservatives into focusing on deficit reduction at the expense of their priorities while they control the presidency. And he's doing it right on cue because the dude is a neo-Max, he's a dweeby. Pete's billionaires want it. And Pete's wine cave would love to see the wine go up in value because it's more scarce because they reduce the deficit and now less people can afford the wine. The deficit has risen sharply under President Donald Trump as it did under his GOP predecessors, George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan. Why do you think that is? Because the GOP always prioritizes the military budget. They spend huge amounts of money into the military. Now, the good news on that is it keeps the economy going. The bad news is, who the fuck wants to sit there and spend all the money into the military? Why are we not spending it on colleges? Why are we not spending it on infrastructure, getting high-speed rail, making colleges free, building urban farms, making cities sustainable? Why are we not doing these things? Why are we not investing in connected and autonomous vehicles? Why are we not doing some of the most basic, awesome things that we could do instead of blowing the world up? I'll tell you why. Because people like Liz Warren and Buttigieg are capitalists to their bones, and they love markets. And markets require deficit reduction because Wall Street wants to be the one that puts you in debt. They don't want them spending on the people because then they lose the opportunity to make you more indebted. Think about what I'm saying. Most people don't have enough in their wallet to survive one missed paycheck. Many don't even have a paycheck. And the people that do are drowning in debt, drowning in student debt. And these bastards want to cut the deficit. It's inhumane. It is immoral. It is psychosis. It is economically illiterate. But cutting the deficit has not been a focus of the 2020 Democratic field, leaving an opening for Buttigieg to claim that mantle. He echoed fiscal hawks on Sunday in arguing that higher deficits strain prospects for investment. Yes, at least a fucker said it. Excuse me. He is all about Wall Street. See, by reducing the deficit, it makes money scarce. It means money lenders can come out going, hey, who wants a loan? Here's a credit card. Here you go. Instead of you being able to just buy it with your normal money, being able to have a little bit of money in savings, being able to live without worrying about every minute being to the nub, razor's edge running from the axe. Having decisions you can make, freedom. These parasites want to make it more difficult. You should be aware of that. You shouldn't let anyone ever tell you it's good to reduce the deficit. You should literally see them as your enemy. I'm done pulling punches. I know there's some people in my community, the community of people that understand economics, MMT, that would challenge me to not be so harsh because people are just not awake yet. But I'm telling you right now, I don't want to die for their stupidity. And my margin is that thin. And many of your margins are even thinner. So I'm done fucking around. When a spade comes out, I call them a spade. I don't sit there and, they just don't understand. They just don't understand. Fuck that. Austerity is murder, and never forget it. The poor in the cities you see sleeping on benches, that right there, my friends, is deficit reduction. That right there is debt reduction. That right there is austerity politics, and it is a political choice. And Mayor Pete the Cheat, is trying to push that. He is no friend of the people, and he is evil through and through. He says it's not fashionable in progressive circles to talk too much about the debt, largely because of the irritation to the way it's been used as an excuse against investment. But if we're spending more and more on debt service now, it makes it harder to invest in infrastructure, health and safety net than we do now. Bullshit. Do you understand? The only debt is printing money, the printing of money. The creation of money, because it's a tally stroke on the debt side of the ledger. It's not debt in any way, shape, or form. And we pay interest because there's a maintenance fee that we baked in to the Federal Reserve Act. Their operating costs. The cost to pay bondholders. People buy a bond, they get 2% interest. Big deal. Keystrokes. Stephanie Kelton, a senior economic advisor to Sanders economics professor at Stony Brook University, fired back at Buttigieg. It's not fashionable in progressive circles because progressives are rejecting the bogus arguments about debt and deficits that have been used to undermine the progressive agenda for decades, she said on Twitter. But Steve Ratner, an investor, Wall Street puke, who advised Obama administration, full of Wall Street neoliberals, on the auto industry policy in 2009, praised Buttigieg. Comments, finally, a Democratic presidential candidate acknowledged that the deficit debt is a huge problem that will need to be dealt with. Fucking waste of a sperm and an egg. Do you understand? These people are bad people. They are not good people. They are not your friend. They're not your friend at all. These people are just straight up evil. Evil. These investors, they know that the minute that government spends on the people, we're not going to be begging and knocking on the door for these 26% loans. Folks, get smart fast. There is no progressive agenda with this sack of shit. You get nothing out of him. Nothing but pain and misery. Remember that. Because a lot of bullshit's going to come out. And it's time you knew the truth and you had the strength of conviction to fight back. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progress in Action saying, cancel Pete. Pete the cheat. Pete's billionaires got to go. Bernie 2020, I'm out.